So you're a dude that's been through some shit, Cub. We were filming a little video talking about some of that, but I want to bring it up so we could talk about it in a little bit more detail here on the podcast. Like, it didn't start off all fucking sunshine and rainbows for you.
No, not at all.
So tell us a little bit about, like, you get through childhood, but also those years where things were, perhaps the darkest.
Well, yeah, I mean, just starting off, my life was crazy. My father passed away when I was 3 months old. And the craziest part about that is that he was 33, and that's how old I am right now. So he passed away with 4 kids and 33 years old, and then boom, I'm 3 months old and born into a little bit of chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And
who else passed away at 33? Jesus.
Oh,
so
yeah, true.
You guys are in good company.
Yeah. And so I was kind of born into a little bit of craziness, and I know my mom had a rough go at it for a while.
Yeah.
And
because that's got to just throw shit into a tailspin a little bit, because super unexpected.
Yeah, and then to make things worse, just kind of how things go. When it rains, it pours. I believe my mom's house was burglarized and basically cleaned out while they were at the funeral, because that's what people do. They look in the newspaper, and when there's a death and they know people are going to be gone, they'll
what a shitty human being.
Yeah,
right?
That's right.
You're at a fucking funeral and you rob the person's house while they're at the funeral.
Yeah,
that's like another level.
Yeah, that's the kind of scum of the earth that's out there, that kind of people you stay away from. Yeah. So I mean, I was born into a crazy situation, but I feel like I've always had loving people around me, and I've always tried to make the best of the situation. I feel like that's kind of done well for me.
Yeah. So then fast forward, you make it through. Mom does your best to raise you. Mm-hmm. But just environment and the place you're in, you end up in a house, bunch of dudes, bunch of drugs, a lot of violence.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like?
So going back to, I was basically adopted for 10 years. I visited my mom, and then when I was 13, I moved back with her. Uh-huh. And I made the choice. That was like the first huge choice I ever was allowed to make, was what did I want to move back in with her. And me and my older brother moved back in with my mom, and my oldest brother was already living with her, and he was already into a bunch of stuff. So we moved in with her, and she was busy trying to feed 6 of us. Mm-hmm. And do the best she could. So she wasn't around as much, and she didn't really have a lot of control over 3 boys in their teens. And so I just kind of did what my older brother was doing, and getting to crazy drama, and doing drugs, going to parties, and just being a lot of crazy people around, gangs, drugs. And so she finally had enough, and told us we had to move out. And I was 17 at the time. I had already graduated high school, so
look at you being all smart, graduating early.
Yeah, well, I started school early, so
you're like, nah, I just started early.
Well, yeah, I think I started kindergarten at just turned 4.
Now, did you get some fight experience because you were younger? And like you were going to be a little bit smaller, and the way these kids are like fucking little predatory dinosaur savages in our school system.
Yeah.
If you're a little bit smaller than someone, they're going to try and...
Well, first of all, my oldest brother used to, beat up me and my other brother a lot.
So that's good. You got a nice basis of ass kickings from an older brother.
And finally I got bigger than him, when I got older, like in
how
high
you like
school.
me now, son?
Yeah, exactly. So that helped. But then my brother was he had little man syndrome, and he stopped growing early, and he was like a little Napoleon, so he was always in fights. Yeah. And then I just inherited that, like, oh, you're Steve's brother, and so that led to a lot of fights, and so I had a lot of experience.
So that was your kind of real world martial arts upbringing.
Yeah.
Did you, at that point, you realize you were fighting that much? Did you like try to learn some skills? Did you like watch some kung fu movies or like put some shit on, or like go to like some local fight gyms and figure some shit out, or you just scrap?
Just scrapped. And because it was so much different, there was occasionally one-on-one fights, but mostly like brawls would just break out.
Yeah.
So it was more about how fast can you get to the car once everything goes down. And when we went to parties, we literally parked our car down the street or in areas that we knew we could get to it. Mm-hmm. Granted, something went down, because there were many times we would get into a fight and then somebody had a gun. So then it's like, okay, we got into a fight, now get to the car and get out of there.
Yeah. It's one of those things where you like paying attention to what shoes you're wearing, paying attention to like what clothes you're wearing.
Yeah.
'Cause you got to be mobile.
Yeah, just in case.
Yeah. Even me, like I've gotten one fight, but still like I don't quite feel comfortable going out with like slippery shoes on.
Yeah.
You know, if I have some like nice boots, you know, that just haven't been worn in right and like a little slippery, I'm like, oh, fuck this.
Just in case.
Just in case. You never know when some shit's going to go down. I don't want to fucking try and plant and then just have my feet go out in front of me.
But I mean, that was like normal. That became normal, and that, and looking back, it's not normal, but that was the norm. You know, it was gunshots going off, and it was to the point to where like, if I heard a gunshot, I wouldn't duck anymore. It was like, oh, these dudes are shooting in the air trying to scare people.
Right.
You know, and there was times where I was like, I would look left and right thinking someone popped some shots off in the air, but then I look over and someone's like, oh, I got shot. And I'm like, oh, shit. Okay.
Fuck, man. It's funny, like, what people get used to. You know, I had obviously, like, if, you know, you're someone like Tim Kennedy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, the situations that he's calm in would be situations where most of the world would shit their pants.
Yeah.
But even, like, on a very small example of this, like, I was out with Cowboy and his friend Mikey, who've been in also countless street fights. You know, they tell the story here on this podcast about this place they call Death Row, which is just all the people would go out of the bars and they just go on this one street, and it's just where you went to fight after you're done drinking if you weren't getting laid. Yeah. So, which is most of the people, obviously. So anyways, countless street fights, plus their profession, you know, like, and, you know, we had some girls out with us, and there's just drunks like all around, and this one drunk, you know, tried to grab one of the girls. I had to like push him off, and then he's like kind of bowed up, and the girls got feisty, and it's a rather unusual experience for me. But to see just how fucking calm Mikey and Donald were in that situation, they were like, oh, fight might be about to break out.
Yeah.
You know, where I was like, my adrenaline I wasn't like too amped, but I was like, wow, man, like really keeping an eye out.
Yeah.
And they're just like, hey man, relax. We're all good. Like, they've been down that road so many fucking times.
Yeah.
You know, and they knew exactly how aggressive somebody would be. They knew what the likelihood of outcome of this turning into a fight. Where me, I'm like, man, I don't know what the fuck's gonna happen. Like, this guy's being all crazy. And they're like, nah. Like,
it's crazy. It's weird. Like, when you're, you know, in that life for a long time, you know how to read people. You know, it's like, I noticed being at a bar and seeing like a bunch of bikers, you know, like kind of just separate from each other and go across the room. And then I pick up that they were giving each other signals. And then I was like, okay, it's time to go. Because these are the kind of guys that someone's going to get stabbed. You know, these are the kind of guys that are crazy, but also, you know, they're smart enough to have signals, and they're trying to get the angle on people, and so they're already planning something. I just need to get out of here.
Like when those lions start cooperating, they're kind of fucking going for killer wolves or something like that. Yeah,
and then if it's like a drunk idiot, then you know, like that they're probably gonna swing, but they don't have much going on. They probably don't have a knife or something. You know, they're just being an idiot. Like, you kind of learn how to gauge the situation.
Interesting. Did you know that you had some aptitude for beating people up back then? Were you like, man, I'm pretty fucking good at this?
No, because I didn't have a lot of one-on-one fights. So
you were like, man, I'm pretty good at sucker punching the fuck out of people.
or just being aware of my situation so I don't get sucker punched.
Yeah.
But I just was an athlete. You know, I've always felt like a good athlete. Me and my brothers played sports growing up. Things were pretty easy.
Baseball?
No, I didn't play baseball. I played t-ball. And then what happened was they put me on like the worst team. It was the Giants, and there was like 2 girls on our team, and it was kind of, you know how it is, the coaches pick the players that they know, and so I just registered, and then they just put me on the team that nobody wanted to be on. And so I remember playing in like at shortstop, and I caught the ball and I threw it to first base, and the kid just stared at me with his glove up, and it went past him. And it like frustrated me so much that when the next time a ball came to me, I was going to throw it to him and just go, well, this guy can't catch. So I ran to first base and beat the guy and tagged him out. So like, they're like, you can't do that. And I was like, well, this sport is stupid.
That's it.
Yeah. And so that's, yeah. And I've never really been that big of a baseball fan since.
Yeah. That's funny. So there was at some point, there was a turning point. Some point you were like, this is not the way I want to live. Mm-hmm. Like, when did that point happen? Was there like a rock bottom moment? You know, like a lot of people have these rock bottom moments, and some people just decide. And that's like a really key concept, like decide this is rock bottom. Before it even actually hits the actual rock. They're like, no, enough's enough. Yeah. Which was it for you?
I don't think I really hit a rock bottom. I felt like I was having those moments where I would sit there and go, is this it? Is this your life? I really feel like actually when I went to juvenile hall, I was going to stop getting in trouble, stop getting caught doing dumb stuff. And then it wasn't until a couple years later that I really changed my life.
How fucked up was juvie?
It was terrible. Yeah.
Tell us about that. What was that like?
Man, it's weird. It's like a whole another life. The things you learn, and I can only imagine what prison is like, because I'm sure it's 1,000 times worse. But just the way that you have to think, it was constant like racial and like gang fights, and you had to be careful of who you disrespected, and you had to make friends with the right people, because if like you had a problem with the guy that got in charge with laundry, every day that you got your new pair of underwear, they would be the most disgusting things that you've ever seen. And it's like little things like that were very important, you know?
Wow.
So it's like the like stories in there are just ridiculous, you know? So all I tried to do was not get into any fights because I didn't want more time added on, because these guys were so dumb that it's like they would do something to somebody, and then like while they were asleep as punishment for something, and then when the guy said, you know, fuck whoever did this, that person would say, well, I did it, well, what's up? And it's like, you're like their ego, they couldn't just stay quiet. They would like rat themselves out, and then they would get into a fight, and then now they have more time added to their sentence, you know? And it's like, couldn't
help themselves.
And I'm like, what is your guys' problem, you know? So like when I had stuff, when it was understood that I had to like take care of a situation, I was like, okay, I'll just pay this guy a Snickers, because that was like money. I was like, you go fight this guy, because I don't want to get in trouble for it. And then when
so you had to play it smart.
So I was smarter than them at the time. So that was
strategy. That's been kind of a theme for you. You know, even going into your fight life. I wonder if maybe that forcing you to learn that kind of strategy, because I remember, you know, a couple of years ago you were out and you were just talking about the strategy of your striking. And it's really, you know, you really cerebrally take this seriously, you know, planning several moves ahead.
I mean, you
never
have
know
to.
where that stuff starts, but
and then, you know, in juvenile hall, it was like, if I'm trying to get out, the goal was to get out as quickly as possible. So not adding time to it. At the same time, I was trying to make the best of the situation by doing all my schoolwork. So I caught up with I had missed a year of school by just ditching. So I had to make up for it. And I did it. I did a year's worth of work in 3 months in juvenile hall. So you know, when I had to go in front of the judge, they're like, well, look, he's doing all his schoolwork, he hasn't gotten any trouble, you know, but at the same time I still had to defend myself in there and do all the things, because
the rules.
People would poke at you and try to, you know, get you to mess up. And if you if you put yourself in the situation and like where you could get punked, you know, where if you showed you were weak, then everybody would take advantage of you. So it was like a very crazy balance.
Yeah, it's like you know, it's kind of like one of those classic reality shows, but there's no cameras.
Yeah, exactly.
No fairness and no tapping out. You know, you're just in it. You have to survive in a crazy situation where social law, you know, determines your success.
And then you have so much time in this cell, and I eventually was in group rooms where, you know, there'd be 5, 6 of us in there, and you learn how to use the restroom without pissing people off, you know, like, and then you learn like,
how do you do that? You just
you flush a lot. So then another crazy thing is we would communicate just to do it because we were bored with the rooms next door, and we did that by taking an extra pillow that happened to be in the room, and they were plastic pillows with a cover, and we'd take the sheet off, and it was a plastic pillow, and super uncomfortable. And you put it on the toilet, and they would like sit on it like and use it kind of like a plunger, and they would make the water level in the toilet drop, and the people next door would do it, and you could talk through the toilet through the pipes. It's like crazy things that you figure out when you're stuck in one place for so long.
Yeah, innovation coming from that. I heard one fucked up story from another fighter who went to juvie, who got super drunk, and I'm not going to mention who it is. He gets super drunk, and he starts talking to me about peanut butter. And he's like talking to me about peanut butter, and I was like, yeah, all right. And he's like, yeah. He's like, you put the peanut butter on the asshole. And I'm like, whoa. What are you talking about, man? He's like, yeah, you know, I mean, it's prison. It's not gay. It's prison. You know, I was like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? I was like, it gets dark in there.
Yeah, some people did not. That's how a fight gets started real quick.
If you peanut butter somebody,
you or stay over there.
Do you not eat peanut butter sandwiches this day? Do you look at a peanut butter sandwich and go,
well, see, I got offered speed when I was in juvenile hall, and I just looked at the guy like he was nuts, and I was like, you're trying to take away the only things that I like right now, which are sleep and food. And that's the only thing I look forward to.
You want to be
place.
Awake longer in fucking prison?
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah, worst drug.
Yeah, but going back to what you originally asked I've always found that what separates me from a lot of people that, you know, I come across that are in bad situations is the fact that I was able to have these, I call them life-changing moments, and I'm able to recognize that now. And before I couldn't. I would hit like rock bottom or a low point in life and then reflect and go, man, I don't like this. I want to change. And then I'll go to bed and wake up the next day, and you just keep doing what you were doing. And then there comes a point where you hit that roadblock again, and you go, man, I don't like this. I need to change. And then you don't change it. And finally, I did make that change. And
how were you able to do that?
I just made a choice.
It's really what it comes down to. Yeah, right? It's just fucking choice.
It's a choice, and you have to stick to it. And then that choice is going to have roadblocks, but you just got to get around them. But it's moving the right direction finally. And I feel like since I decided to do that when I was 19, to pursue martial arts and just to do something different and make the right choices of not doing drugs and not doing the things that kept getting me in bad places. It hasn't been easy, but my life has been better ever since. And I just always tell people that my ability to recognize life-changing moments and then act on it and make that conscious decision has really like changed me as a person and made me who I am.
Yeah, there's a a great saying that people change from inspiration or desperation. You know, like some people, it takes the heart attack before they actually start, fixing their diet.
Yeah.
You know, and some people it takes like absolutely abject rock bottom, before they make a change. And some people have the ability to see things not going the way they want, and through inspiration just be like, you know what, I don't like this. Like, I have to move. And that's probably the most essential skill that we can have, is to not force the world to make things so fucking miserable that we have to change. But instead, when things are even okay, be like, no, enough is enough. Like, I'm not doing this anymore. It's not serving me.
Yeah.
You know, it's not serving my ultimate mission, my ultimate goal. And I think that's another key thing that you said. Like, you had a very clear mission when you were in juvie. You wanted to get out. You know, you wanted to get out and you wanted to accomplish as much as you could and also have as peaceful an experience as you could along the way.
Yeah.
Like, and you weren't willing to bend that, you know, when your emotions got riled up, when everything got riled up. I mean, in so many situations, people lose sight of what the mission is. Like even think of something like trivial. Like, all right, you have to break up with your girlfriend or boyfriend, right? Like, the mission should be to go there to separate as peacefully and as lovingly as possible with as little damage as can be done, you know, and make sure that it's done. But what ends up happening, you get in there, you start fucking yelling at each other, you know, you make things all chaotic and messy and worse. And it's like they aren't able to stick to the mission. And the same thing could happen in prison. You could have been like, nah, fuck you, motherfucker, and gotten in all these fights, and then chaos goes out, and then all of a sudden you're in there for another 6 months, and it's hell the whole way through. You know, like the ability to identify, even in the small situations, this is my mission. This is the strategy. This is what I got to do to get out. And people, you know, it's a super important thing to do.
Yeah, and I think that's why you always hear successful people say you have to have somewhat of a game plan, and you have to have like a list, a to-do list. You know, that way you're not just like living life carelessly. You kind of have goals, you know, and you're trying to reach those goals, and then within that large goal you have many small ones, because you need those small victories to make you feel like, I'm getting somewhere. And you can relay that, you know, to anything. And
it becomes, you know, instead of even looking at it as goals, you look at it like a mission and then the process to get you there to that mission. And then even, you know, I get a chance to talk with a lot of fighters, and it's important for me to remind them, like, all right, what's the mission here? And generally it's make as much money as possible and take as little damage as possible. Right? And I'm like, so why are you taking the fights? Because some dude called you out. You know, it's like, well, that motherfucker said this thing about me. So I was like, does that fit with the mission? Like, is that really following the mission, or is that just your ego got tickled a little bit, and you want to settle some shit? You know, like having that mission and then just making sure that you stick with it. It's so crucial for whatever it is, because the forces of resistance, our own emotions or everything, they'll steer us off in all kinds of weird paths.
And those are all the things you brought up are all things that are very emotional. You know, a breakup with someone, or, you know, somebody talking crap are the most emotional things, you know? So I believe that you got to know where you're going and what's the purpose, and try not to get too emotional.
And what happens when, like, you have a good plan, you have good goals, things are going fucking right on track. You had like a 7-fight win streak, you know, you were on fire. And then some shit does not happen according to plan. Frankie Edgar, Austin, Texas, not part of the fucking plan, right? How do you know, and then that subsequently Max Holloway fight, you know, 2 losses after that big win streak. How do you bounce back? How do you find the resiliency in those moments when you had a good fucking plan, you've done everything you could, or do you look back and think, maybe I didn't do everything I could? Like, well, how does that work? Like, what do you think about when you think about those moments?
I would imagine it'd be like just somebody who's trying to invent something that's never been done before. You build something, and then you're pretty proud of it, then it gets torn down because it's not what it needed to be to survive, and then you build another one, and that's not it. You tear it down, you build another one. You know, you ask like an inventor, how many prototypes did you have? Oh, maybe 20. So it's like, how many times do I have to rebuild myself? And every time it's difficult, because every time you're rebuilding, you're thinking, this is the one, you know? So when you're on that win streak and everyone's hyping you up and telling you how great you are, you're like, this is it. This is the best version of myself. And then boom, you just get torn down, just, you know, to the lowest possibility. And then I think a lot of people in their fight careers, they just go, okay, I'm going to retire now, you know, and that's it. But I had to really ask myself, okay, is this the best version of yourself? Have you had your best fights? And then you look at like my last fight, like that would have never happened had had I quit a few times, you know? So, and that option was there. But I said, I really don't feel like the best version of myself has happened yet. And I feel like I still have work to do. So I went back to the drawing board. I questioned everything. I questioned every person around me, you know, and not in a negative way. It's just like, well, how could they be better at making me better? You know, how am I the best at taking criticism? And, you know, like, you know, am I pushing myself hard enough? You question everything, and then you rebuild. And I feel like I'm a better version of myself because of it.
That's extremely wise. And I think, you know, to use that inventor analogy, it's almost like you identify not as the invention, but as the inventor, right? Because like the body and who you are, like what the fighter that came into the ring, that's your invention. Yeah. You've put all the work, you've created that prototype, you've added the skills, you've trained the muscles, you've programmed the thought patterns. That's the invention of the inventor. That force behind it all, right? And if you identify as the invention, this is me, the fighter who's doing all these things. No. You're the inventor who created that thing. You created that fighter that's going in there. You know, and at that point, then you have the ability to divorce yourself from the outcome and be like, oh, well, that invention failed, but I'm a very clever inventor. I'm going to go back and I'm going to recreate this invention with new skills and new techniques and be able to do it. And you know, that's the classic spiritual move of identifying as consciousness, as identifying as the thinker behind the thoughts, the observer behind the actions, rather than the actions and the thoughts and the self that you've created. And if you're able to do that, you know, at that point, you have so much more freedom because you're not all emotionally invested in the invention. You know, same with someone who's running a company. You know, they'll get so involved as the company is them. That's their identity. That's who they are. You know, no, you're the person who built this thing. But you're still you. If that thing, you know, has problems, or if that thing fails, or the artist who creates the art, if someone criticizes your art, you know, it's hard. Yeah, it hurts. Fuck yeah, it hurts. Fucking hurts a lot. But you're still the artist who created the art. You know, this is just the art. And in any way, that's going to be helpful. But you know, I think it's I've never even thought about it that way as a fighter, but I think it's fucking brilliant and super crucial to allow you to take a look, you know, without bias and be like, oh, this happened. Because you know what other people do? People will come up with all kinds of excuses so they don't have to change, so they don't have to alter the invention. And it's like, no, the invention was perfect, man. It's just some weird shit happened.
Well, I mean, and I feel like they have to, because if they're not gonna do all those things, every fighter has to feel at some point that they're the best in the world, or the best in their promotion, or you know, they build up to that, being the best in the world in their own head. Because it's like, if I'm in the UFC and I'm in the talent pool of, you know, 60 of the best fighters in the world at my weight class, and that's my job, is to try to be the best one of them, I have to believe it, you know. And if I lose, how do I believe it? I have to convince myself that something happened. Either have to get better, or you have to convince yourself, something happened, I'm still the best, it was just a fluke, you know. Because how else can you move forward? So it's one is either convince yourself that something happened, or get better. And
I think again it goes back to the identification of I. What are you identifying as I? You can still believe I am the best. The inventor of this fighter is the best. My spirit, my heart, my intelligence, the skills that I'm going to accumulate. I am the best. That invention failed. The invention was not the best. It was lacking these skills. It was lacking this thing that I needed to add. You know, this little bit of wrestling, this little bit of jits, this little bit, you know, these striking techniques. I was lacking that, lacking this endurance piece, you know. My invention wasn't quite right, but I'm the best, you know. And I think that would be the way, I think the healthiest way out of that scenario, because otherwise you just kind of make excuses and come out with the same invention again, and generally the same shit happens, you know, and you get stuck in that kind of loop because you're identifying as the wrong thing.
I hadn't even really thought about it like that in depth, but hearing you say it, it makes even more sense. Because I mean, take a guy running a business, like you said, if the business fails, it's like I'm a failure. No,
Right.
it's just there could have been a few things wrong with the business, and you learn from it, you know, and you keep going. I mean, how many businesses are going to fall before one works? It happens all the time. So yeah, I think, you know, Brian Stan's the one that told me a long time ago how he dealt with a loss and just really not beating himself up as a failure. And just going, just that loss doesn't define me as a human being. And that's what helped me kind of mentally get past it and just go, okay, how can I recreate?
Yeah. Like almost like, you ever see that show, The Battle Bots?
Yeah.
Where they create those little things. One has like a big hammer. The other ones, the spinning ones generally win.
Yeah.
But occasionally the spinning one loses to the flipping ones. Like flip that motherfucker on its head.
I did like watching those.
I do like that.
It's interesting.
But that's kind of what a fighter is. Like they're kind of creating their own battle bot with their own path to victory. You know, the jits. I mean, everybody's so well cross-trained now. It's a little bit different because the battle bots are more single-minded. But nonetheless, you have your defense, your offense, your special technique. Yeah. That thing that you can force somebody into. That is your undeniable, you know, your undeniable force and skill. And then, but you know, you get in there and you have someone who has a new thing that's undeniable. You got to take a look at your battle bot and be like, damn, my battle bot's got to be ready for that motherfucker who's got this thing.
Well, I always use the kind of analogy similar to that. To people ask me, how do you diet? You know, and the thing is when I'm mentally focused in the fight and I'm ready, like I'm in fight camp. Of course, you have cravings and things like that, but when I'm consciously thinking about what I'm eating and putting in my body, it's really about, like I tell them, like you wouldn't, if you owned a NASCAR and that you were a professional driver, you wouldn't pull up to AM/PM and just put like 87 gas in there. Yeah. You know, you think that was crazy. No, you put the best quality products into that machine. And that's how I think of dieting. I'm trying to put the best quality products into this machine. That way I can perform at my best. Yeah. And that's the way I think about eating. I don't think about it like emotionally, like, oh, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, you know? Trying to please that little flesh pad of pleasure on your mouth with the right sensation that those Skittles give you when they fucking touch your tongue.
Later you feel like crap and you're performing like crap. So it's like, that's how I think of it, and that's how I separate myself, you know, when I'm eating.
Again, you're identifying as the driver, not the car. Because the body's going to tell you all kinds of fucked up shit. And where that comes from, you know, there's a lot of different theories. Like maybe it's the microorganisms in your body, because we're all just this cellular communication network. All of the cells communicate to the brain, and the brain decides who they're listening to. Well, we got a bunch of cells in our guts that do not have our best interest in mind. You know, all of the parasites and worms and candida, they really want to turn us into a pile of flesh that they can completely decompose and reproduce like rampant and take us over. Like, so maybe it's some of their communication that's coming through that's being like, yeah, eat that Twinkie dog, it's gonna be good for you. You know, they're trying to literally put us in the dirt, you know. So you can't listen to all of these cravings in the body. You got to identify like where it's coming from. Like maybe after a hard workout, that craving for protein, you know, listen to that thing. Or the craving for more salt, maybe your body needs those minerals, but maybe it's some bad craving that you really shouldn't listen to. But being able to be the driver instead of just being the car, it's that same move. It's like where you are a force like above all of the voices, making those most conscious decisions and not subject to these emotional or kind of impulsive thoughts that come through you.
Yeah. And see, this is like one of those moments where I'm like, write that down, because that's something that I do that I'd never have taught my students, you know, that I need to, you know, to just something to work towards. Because I try to give them everything that I have, you know, that my knowledge. But a lot of things that people that are great at something do, they don't realize they do because they just do it. Yeah. You know, so it's very hard to teach. Yeah. Until you realize, oh yeah, I do that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something that you've kind of intuitively learned and just yeah, it's interesting. Well, man, tell us about this last fight, because that was some epic shit. That was so. Doohoo Choi, is that how you pronounce his name? Yeah. And this kid was a lot of hype. Yeah. You know, people come up. He was putting people to sleep. Yeah. Yeah. He was just fucking knocking people out. And I think anytime, you know, an Asian fighter's doing good, they get a lot of hype because it's a huge ass market.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just talk about the business dynamics of that. You get an Asian champion, all of a sudden your pay-per-view buys in this whole section of the world, 1/3 of the fucking human population starts to pay more attention. It's just the way it goes. So that was part of it, but part of it, he's a fucking hell of a fighter.
Yeah.
You're going in as an underdog, even though you're coming off 2 wins, and then magic happens. Like, so I guess take us through like the startup of that, and then at what point did you realize something special was going on in that fight? Yeah,
well, I mean, we got offered the fight. I knew it was between him and somebody else. I can't remember. I think it was him or Dennis Bermudez was one of the opponents they were going to give me. It ended up being Choi. Took the fight. He was asking for it. He was kind of calling me out, but respectfully. And but to me, I knew it. I kind of took it as, if you're calling me out, it's in a respectful way. It's still disrespectful because you believe that you're better than me.
Yeah.
So my fighter instinct goes, no, you're not. So what I had took from the whole thing was that he was calling me out because I figured that he thought that I was the easiest in the top 15 to pick off. So that's what bugged me, because it's like, of everybody, why me? And so that's what fired me up about it. And so going back to 2 fights prior, I was fighting grapplers, and I trained a lot of strength training. I slowed down a little bit because I wanted to make sure that I was nice and strong and able to get out any submissions, or not the same thing that happened in the Frankie Edgar fight. I wasn't going to let it happen again.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to conquer that. This fight was more like the Max Holloway fight, where somebody's long and fast and very technical, and I wasn't going to allow that to happen again. So again, I'm going back to trying to fix those things that I had done wrong. And so I knew that I was going to come faster, more explosive than he had seen, and I figured that he thinks that I'm getting older, I'm slowing down.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a little bit less strength training and a lot of sprints and agility training, and just anything to just make me more an explosive athlete. And then the game plan going into the fight was kind of, everybody that he had knocked out was kind of on their heels, standing in front of him, and he does a good job of kind of, the snake charmer. Makes you sit there, and then boom, he hits you.
Change of speed.
Yeah, and then and guys are crumbling. So I watch those videos, and I'm like, geez, these guys are good fighters, and they get hit once and they're crumbling. Mm-hmm. And so it made me like really look at the video of what he's doing. And so my game plan was just to keep moving and chip away at him. And because I knew my coaches wanted me to chip away at him and just keep fighting that fight, but I knew that I was going to have to scrap with him, because I was like, this kid's not going to go away. I'm not going to chip away at him and he's going to quit. Like I just knew he was tough. So I was like, what I'd like to do is chip away at him for the first round and slow him down to where, because he's beat so many people in the first round, I want to slow him down so that going into the second and third round, when we're ready to scrap, he's ready to fire off like he had in the past, but his tools aren't working the same because I chipped away at him.
Yeah.
So that was the game plan. And then once I realized that he didn't like moving backwards, he liked to be the guy that dictated the pace, and I started pushing him, he didn't like it. And so that made it a lot easier, because I'm like, I can brawl, but I can brawl with pro boxers and the best of them. So I just decided to every time he tried to throw a jab, I was thinking of throwing 3 haymakers over the top.
Yeah.
And then just kind of doing funky rhythm patterns so that he couldn't catch me.
There, at certain points, you hit him so clean, like so clean, like the things that you dream about. I know you're a big visualization guy.
Yeah.
Like the punches and the kicks and the knees that you're like, oh yeah, that's the sweet one.
Yeah.
And he just took it like Terminator, zombie style.
Yeah.
What were you thinking at that point?
It was tripping me out because I literally, there's a couple strikes that landed on him that were like, when I hit pads and I throw like a certain combination and I land it perfectly, I can feel my fist hitting my pad holder's hand, like the palm of their hand.
Yeah.
And I know that I can feel it like generating up their shoulder, and I'll watch them kind of shake it off. Like I know when it hits hard and perfect. And then on sparring partners, there's a couple times when we're deep into battle and I can land this combination and I hit it and I see him buckle in the knees and I'll pull back because I'm not going to try to finish him off. But I mean, these are like guys that can take shots.
Yep.
And I hit him with a shot.
Probably headgear on too.
Yeah, headgear and 16s.
Yeah.
And I hit him with something very similar, like pretty much the exact same thing I hit him with and hurt him. And I hit him with it and he just took it, and that just was frustrating.
It's like one of those dreams where like you're in a dream and you're hitting the shit out of somebody and they just are not being fazed by it.
Yeah, but I was hitting them hard. Yeah, and I know because when I took my gloves off, my knuckles were purple, like all of them, like all the way down to my fingertips. My hands were purple, and they were just sore. They weren't like broken. I know when a hand is broken. But yeah, they were just bruised. Like I couldn't even put my own shoes on, like without being in pain, because to put your finger in and try to slide your foot in, like it hurt my hands. And so I knew I hit him hard, and he was just one tough guy, and he had heart. Yeah,
and there's kind of a superpower. I mean, that is a very fraction of human beings that could take that kind of punishment, and also probably smart training to keep his brain in some kind of condition that it was nice and juicy so it could go through those. But he's going to have to be careful because he doesn't want to continue to do that indefinitely.
But I mean, he did some things. The coolest thing is be able to watch the fight in slow motion. You learn a lot. So the one time he did hurt me was I was being a little reckless and I was just trying to pour it on him, and I threw a wide loopy hook, and his best punch is a straight right, and he went right inside my sloppy hook and caught me on the chin.
Yeah.
So later in the fight, and I believe it was the second round, we were in a clinch. We pushed off, and he kept his guard up, and I threw a right uppercut, a left hook, a right, and then he was kind of taking the punches, but they weren't like the hardest things. And he saw me throw right, left, right, and then the next punch would be left, right. That's how people fight. They go left, right, and then you try to break that rhythm by going left, right, right. And that's what I did. So he saw me go right, left, right, and then he thought the left was coming, and he recognized it, and he tried to slip in that straight right again where he had caught me before. But instead, I switched the pattern, and I paused on the left and started another right. So I went right, left, left, and then he threw that right hand right down the pipe, just like he did before. But when I switched the pattern, my right hand hit him first, and his head snapped back, and that was when he kind of fell against the cage. So it was like I knew that I was going to beat him on smarts. So I had a broken rhythm. He thought he had my rhythm, and I broke that rhythm, and that's when I hurt him the most, were the times like that.
Yeah. That was, even back from the day, was one thing that impressed me was how much you would break down, the striking game. Because I've also, again, seen fighters who do it the other way, where it's like, nah, man, I don't watch tape. It's just a fight, man. Like, what's the game plan? I don't know. I'm going to go in there and fight him. I don't think that's the best way. I think there's a lot of things that you can learn that will do that. I mean, even, I don't know if you got to see it, but Paul Felder had an amazing victory last night.
I was on the plane.
And he was talking about, I forget the name of his opponent right now, but he was talking about how he analyzed this dude's patterns and his combinations. Like he knew what his favorite shit was, and he memorized it, and they'd had people practicing it. And he found the counters that he liked to that. And it was a lot of like lead elbows and things like that. And it worked out exactly as he had planned. The counter to this combo was him stepping in with the lead elbow, broke this dude's nose. And it was consistently working. And that would have been a much tougher fight had he not really analyzed. He would have just
been another rock'em sock'em fight, because he's had some of those. And I think those have been some of my favorite fights, is I've been able to recognize things before the fight and then pull them off, and that's like the most gratifying, because it's like you saw it happen before it happened, and you made it happen. So to me, those fights have been the best, and the things that I'm most proud about. And that's, I always tell my students back home, yeah, if I throw a spinning back kick, you know, that's just one thing they have to think about. You know, it's like when I walk up to an opponent, I know where I'm vulnerable, right? And then I'm seeing where's their power coming from. It's coming from, you know, my right side, right above my eye, or going to the body, it's lower, right? So it's like that's where my defense needs to be.
Yeah.
Right. And if I, like when I fought Dennis Seaver, when I first thought, I was like, man, he's got some dangerous, you know, things about him. But then when I really watched tape on him, he was only dangerous in two places, my whole right side, up high and low, because he had a left hook, a snapping left head kick, and a spinning right kick, but he only spins one direction. So I could literally walk up to the guy and fight him the whole time with my right hand pinned to my face and my body, and he would never hurt me because his only attacks were right there.
Right.
So it makes me more confident walking towards somebody when I know what their strength is. Now, somebody who's gonna, you know, be dangerous everywhere, you know, you don't know if they're gonna take you down or what they're gonna throw, if they're gonna do a, you know, I do cartwheel kick and a spinning kick and a flying knee and have a nice jab and a big overhand right, and you know, then he switches stances. Now I'm giving that guy so many things to worry about. He's constantly mentally on defense. Yeah. And you can't ever win a fight if you're just 100% on defense all the time.
Yeah. You know, I read, I think it was a little meme even this morning, and it said the best way to predict the future is to control the future. You know, and that's never more true than for fighters. You know, fighting is a chaotic thing, but if you can steer your opponent into certain lanes, you know, force their actions to come out a certain way based upon your preparation and what you're able to do, you're going to win that 9 out of 10 times, you know. And that's it's the same way no matter what you're doing. This is, you know, fighting is just a metaphor for all things in life. You approach these things with as much preparation, as much practice. You know what direction you're going to push somebody. It could be stand-up comedy. You know how to set that joke up. You know how to take the tone into this way and then deliver the final punch, which is the, you know, that, or whether it's a presentation at work, you know, you're laying out these defenses, covering these potential objections, figuring out these things, any way that you're being persuasive, anything that you have to do to convince somebody. It could even be fucking going out on a date, you know, like you can apply this stuff and be like,
I mean, and girls do that. They have something goes wrong, I'm gonna fake this text, and they always have an out.
They have their
and that's smart, because you don't know who you're meeting if it's a blind date. You know what I'm saying? I think that's the biggest thing for fighters that I feel like I really see more now as I've been doing this so long, as I've seen so many people make it, but I've seen so many people's dreams crushed, and then we see like, well, where are they now type scenario. And I feel like a lot of guys just have so much trouble, and you see this with any sport, what happens when it's over. And I feel like as fighters, we're not doing a good job of taking the skills that you learn from fighting and translating into life, and then remembering, like, I was an alpha male, I was a beast. Let me apply that to whatever I'm going to do next, not just, I guess I'll take this job. You know what I mean? Type mentality.
Or, you know, you guys all push yourself through impossible shit in training.
Yeah.
You know, but like, you can do the same thing in studying another craft. And it's not going to be physical punishment. It's going to be mental focus and attention. Like, how many hours can you read that book that's boring as shit, but it's going to help you on your next path?
Yeah.
You know, how many times can you wake up and do the same practice to prepare you for whatever that thing is? You know, how disciplined can you be in these other areas? And, you know, that's I think the key. And learn something specifically and apply it broadly.
Yeah. Like, well, I think passion. We had passion for the sport, so you have to either find something you're passionate about, or find a way to be passionate about being good at that, or having pride in that. You know, it's like, it's easy for us, if you decide to be a fighter, to have pride to win, because no one likes losing. You don't show up every game.
Well, you have a stark negative motivation.
Exactly.
Because the motivation of not losing is a really powerful force, which you might not have in life. It could be just all about winning. So you have to get as fired up about winning as you are scared of losing.
Yeah, exactly.
On the other side.
And so it's like, I feel like whenever fighters have that, okay, what I got to do next in life, they're just kind of settling, and they're not having that same drive and that same like, no, I'm going to be the greatest at whatever it is I'm going to do. Okay, I got this job offer. It's a good job offer, but it's not really what I want to do, but let me attack it. Let me be the best at it I can be. And I feel like those are the people that have had that attitude are the most successful. You know, not the ones that are like, oh, I didn't make it as a fighter, or I didn't go out on my terms. You know, they kind of have that negative attitude going in, and they're forgetting how much tools and how much knowledge they have at being great. Yeah,
practicing and being great. And also, I think it also, goes back to mission. Like, even if you're not passionate about the specific little, like, a lot of people probably aren't passionate about some of the grinding aspects of training, like some of the road runs and some of the fucking conditioning things that you guys do. Like, it just sucks. But the mission is really important. And sometimes in professional life, some of the stuff you do is going to suck. But if you're passionate about the mission, like, I want to have the financial resources, the wherewithal to inspire the people, to have a family, to help my homies that need help when they need help, to be able to be this force, in my life, and just be passionate about that, and realize, like, it doesn't all have to be fun. Some of the stuff you're just going to have to accept, some of the stuff you're going to enjoy, and some of the stuff you're going to be truly enthusiastic about. But as long as you have your mission and you're enthusiastic about your mission, then you just accept the stuff that sucks.
I think if people had that mindset and their mission, they would be more successful. I mean, I've been motivated because I've had the good fortune of hearing some really powerful people speak, and just seeing, like, how good they are at just public speaking and inspiring people is making me, like, excited to my next talks, like, be better, because I've kind of just shared my story, and I feel like I could have just given people the tools to how I got there, like little things, like we talked about, just recognizing something wrong and wanting a change and saying I can do that, and then having that mission statement or that goal, and just even if it's not the goal that you're going to have long term, but having a goal and being able to work towards something. I feel like
build positive momentum.
Like that's kind of the things I want to start telling kids when I go talk.
Dope. What do you want to get out of fighting for the rest of your career here? What's the goal?
What's funny is, like, you get lost in kind of like the want to be the champ and this and that, and really from day one, I thought the coolest thing in the world would be being able to have, like, a grandkid on my lap, because I remember hearing, like, my grandpa talk about being a boxer in the Army, and then just thinking that was cool, and kind of, I wanted to be a grandfather one day, have a kid on my lap, my grandkid on my lap, and go, yeah, it was pretty tough, and then have them look me up or something and go,
fight of the year 2016.
And just be proud. And so that motivated me, and so that always wanted me to be, okay, how great can I be? I just wanted to maximize my ability and to reach my full potential in my own, what I felt was. And that would make me happy. And then when I'm done, when I'm ready to walk away from fighting, I could do it easily. Like you see guys that retire on their own terms, and they're just, whether they had championships, but they were an amazing player, and be at peace with it. I don't want to be one of those people that always feels like, man, I wish I could still do it, or I wish I would have had another chance. I don't want to have any regrets.
Uriah is a good example of someone who, Uriah Faber just went out like that. Kind of a cool way. I mean, never quite got the belt, but but just went out on his own terms, and
he was a lot of accomplishments. What I also admire about him is, granted, me and him always were close to fighting, so we were never friends, but later in life, we kind of became friends, and but he became good in business and kind of set himself up real well to be able to exit out on his terms. So when he said, yeah, you know what, this will be my last fight, it wasn't as hard for him, I would imagine, because I'm not him, but I would imagine it was easier for him than a lot of people because he did all the right things.
Yeah. Yeah. The worst case scenario is you really don't want to fight. Your body's not up to it, but you're looking at your bank account like, what the hell am I going to do?
Yeah. And I feel like there are a lot of fighters like that and athletes in general. And to me right now at this moment, that's what it's about. It's about still chasing the best version of myself and securing, my future. Because I feel like I have worked so hard to get to where I'm at, and I continue to work so hard that I want to get to a point in life where I can take a step back and chill out, if I need to, and feel secure in that. For when I do eventually have a family and be able to be like, I want to take time off. I want to do this, I don't want to feel like I did when I was 17, 18, 19, and barely making it and barely getting by and stressing about stupid things when I'm not enjoying life,
Hell yeah. We're here to play. We're here to have fun.
Yeah. Trying to experience life. That's what it's all about.
Do it with a smile.
Yeah.
Cub, man, it's an honor to be able to sit here with you and talk to you again, brother.
Yeah, it's been a while. I'm glad to be back.
Hell yeah. What's your social? Where can people follow you?
At Cub Swanson, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
Where can people buy your dope little stickers?
You can get my stickers a couple places in virusinternational.com, and then DC Mouth Guards. They're actually making some of my stickers too.
Kill the Cub.
Yeah, and you can get my mouth guards there too.
One of the dopest logos in MMA for sure.
Thank you. Yeah, it represents me. It's a playful yet kind of scary logo.
Yeah, a teddy bear with a fucking ski mask.
Yeah. I mean, and that's me. It's like I am nothing like the person in the cage unless I get backed into a corner.
Right.
So that's kind of what it's all about.
Hell yeah. Awesome, man. Thank you, my brother. Thank you, everybody. Peace.